That's not my hand. My hand's over there. So that's kind of weird.
That's kind of weird.
Now that Jonah has linked this volunteer's brain to the new hand, he's got an even bigger surprise for her.
That was a little bit scary.
Good friend.
Oh my goodness. When you hit that thing, I thought I was gonna lose my hand. So I was so scary. And it really felt like that was like I could move those fingers if I wanted to. My brain decided that I could feel that, and that you hitting that was hitting me. It's so strange how it does that.
Impressive, right? Let's see how many other people fall prey to this mind game.
My name's Jonah. Okay, so you keep on staring at that hand.
That was crazy. That was crazy.
Oh wow, that scared me.
That scared you?
Although around 10% of the participants weren't able to mentally connect the fake hand to their body,
Did it feel like I smashed your hand at all?
no. Most felt some kind of phantom sensation, if not actual pain. Jonah is hacking into these people's mental body maps,
Oh my god.
causing them to connect information inaccurately. This is something that's relatively easy to do at home. Play along with our actors in this one.
Okay, so try this. Put your hands out. Cross them.
Remember this trick from when you were a kid? Place your hands in front of you, cross your arms, and place the face of your palms together with your thumbs down.
Fingers together and bring it up.
Link your fingers, and then twist your arms down and towards you.
There you go.
Now have someone else point to one of your fingers, or just pick one yourself and try to lift it.
That one there. There you go.
Did you move the right one? Try another,
This one
and
over
another.
here. Wrong one. There you go.
Harder than you expected? Here, just like in the rubber hand trick, we disoriented your mental map of your body and caused many of you to mistake one hand for another.
All right. So those are some examples of other illusions using bodily sensations. So one thing to discuss is something called the gate control theory of pain. And that's basically that pain signals have to pass through your spinal cord in order to get up to your brain for you to actually experience the pain. So these neural transmissions are gates because they can be opened and closed. So if you close the gate, you will actually experience less suffering, and then if the gates are open, you'll experience more suffering because it can buffer the signals to your brain. Because so many signals can pass through at the same time, you can actually almost help pain by causing additional signals through other parts of your body. So if you try to use a competing signal, you might actually help with the pain. So if something's hurting like your toe or something, you could start rubbing your other leg or making some kind of additional sensation, because then it's making it more difficult for that pain sensation to go through the peripheral nerves and pass to the brain. And this is one reason why they argued rubbing or applying pressure can reduce the feeling of pain. Also, maybe pinching another part of the body will just still cause pain, but it's a competing pain. And this can minimize the pain that you're experiencing from something. Also, when you have people with chronic back pain, they'll input something in the back that actually kind of uses sensations to also block that gate so that it'll lower back pain. The last sense we're going to talk about is taste. So we have taste buds, papillae, and those are bumps on the tongue surface. And we talked about this in the last class, because if you have a certain number, you are considered a super taster. The more bumps you have, the stronger your sense of taste is. There are 4 primary tastes. You have sweet, sour, salty, and bitter. And also a fifth one is proposed, and it's umami. And it's almost a fishy taste or a yummy, good taste. In fact, MSG is supposed to have the umami taste, which is why if you ever travel to China or Japan, they'll actually have MSG on the side, similar to how we have salt in America that you can sprinkle on your food. Now, if you remember, glutamate is also related to migraines, which is why people with migraines might want to avoid MSG, because it does increase the amount of glutamate in the system. Related to your taste bud is olfaction, which is smell. So this is lined in the nasal cavity. What's interesting is this is that chemical reception. But it's also highly related to taste, and you've probably recognized that, where if you have a cold and your nasal cavity is congested, food does not taste nearly as strong, because a lot of our taste is still connected to our sense of smell. So we can subliminally detect mates using something called pheromones that we smell. So if you're attracted to someone and you don't know why, especially if they're an idiot or they're an asshole, it may be that they have pheromones that will actually arouse you, and you can smell different pheromones from people. Now, a problem with this is when you put on a lot of perfume, you actually block that pheromone smell, and it makes it more difficult for people who would be attracted to your particular pheromone to recognize it in the first place. And like it says here, different genes will make you attracted to different pheromones. So some people are attracted to one type and other people are attracted to another type of pheromone. Now, dogs can actually smell up to 100,000 times better than humans. And there's research that shows that dogs can smell things that we wouldn't even know has a scent. So for example, there's some dogs that can actually smell cancer. So when someone has cancer, the dog can recognize it. And they'll use this to help diagnose someone in the early stages of cancer. The other sense is kinesthetic sense, and this is an interesting sense you don't really think about. We don't identify it as one of the 5 senses. It's an additional sense, but it has to do with your ability to sense the body's movement and position. So you're able to tell when you're standing up, you're able to tell when you're laying down. We use something called proprioceptors, which give that information about where our muscles are and whether they're contracted or stretching, so we can recognize the location of our body in space. Similar to kinesthetic, but slightly different. So where kinesthetic has to do with your muscles and joints, you have a vestibular sense, which has to do specifically with balance. So in your ear canal, you have these 3 circular tubes that are all at slightly different angles. And when we move, the fluid changes the position in these tubes based on gravity. And that gives us an idea of where we are in space. Now, when this gets thrown off, this can cause nausea. And it's one reason why one of the big problems for people who go to space is this vomiting problem, because when you're in zero gravity, those 3 circular tubes will no longer be pulled down by gravity anymore. And what happens, especially during liftoff into space, is that liquid just bounces back and forth in those tubes, and that causes an intense feeling of nausea that causes a lot of vomiting. So it's still something that NASA is trying to figure out. So that's the end of the lecture. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week in class.